Hello, everyone. I'm Davy Jags, and this is Sparkle On. We find our sparkle through our happiness, passion, and self-worth through the power of creativity. Today, I can't even explain how excited I am to have Amy Scott, who is an award-winning filmmaker known for so many documentaries. She debuted at Sundance in 2018 for Hal, but she's also known for her most recent documentaries with Sheryl Crow, Lainey Wilson, and my personal favorite, I've talked about on the podcast, The Counting Crows.
Make a sound when I'm standing and I'm shouting out. It started as a spark, but felt the flame.
We're going to dive into her creative process and how she's worked with these amazing musicians. So, Amy, thank you for joining Sparkle On.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. This is so fun.
Yeah. So, with documentary making, there's so many nuances and layers that as a director and editor, you have to dive into. What was that first initial curiosity that you kind of can recall that drew you to making documentaries?
I just loved watching them. Last night I was rewatching Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine. If you remember that, it's actually a sad film, but I didn't realize that making documentaries was like a viable, like a job, like something that you could do, follow people around with a camera and ask them questions about their lives. So I was in college. I just really became more of like a voracious consumer of all different kinds of documentaries and sort of found my path through editing, I think, initially.
Was there one particular film that was like, it really just resonated with you to the point where you're like, okay, how do I do this?
Yeah, there was lots of them. There's a documentary called King of Kong, which is a really well-known doc. It's super funny. I like, Chris Smith makes a great films, American Movie. A lot of these sort of documentaries that came out in the 90s I love, but really going back to like Albert Maysles and D.A. Pennebaker, these guys that were sort of like, at the forefront of documentary filmmaking in the 60s, I guess. It was really inspiring to me. And Werner Herzog, when he made the film Grizzly Man, that was something that I really was drawn to. But I like, there is a Bob Dylan film that I loved. And I think in terms of just my work in arts and culture, that really spoke to me, and that you could follow this superstar around and hang back in a room of other musicians and just kind of observe the way that they live. I thought that was really fascinating.
It is. So. It's super fascinating. And then that's what I love about documentaries. It's this behind the scenes of like a fly in the wall perspective. And for years you were an editor, and you kind of have talked about in other interviews where that really taught you the craft to then transition to being a director. What is the main difference between these two roles that was maybe like the biggest learning curve for you?
Well, it's interesting. So documentary editing is very different, or let's say unscripted editing is very different than scripted editing.
Right.
There's way more footage on the documentary side of things, and I've edited both. It's like, I always felt like, not that then we've made jokes about it, the editor is not the director, but they're a lot closer to it in documentary because you're really crafting the story. And a lot of times you are working on a film that they didn't quite have the story while they shot it, or they're following the story, waiting for it to unfold. And so there's like, sometimes you can have like 200 hours of footage, and you start doing paper edits. And on the flip side, on the scripted side of things, you have a script, it's
right.
Like, it's very like, find the best take and then match, get the timing to work. And so it's a whole different thing. When I was cutting documentaries, I felt like I kept wanting more. And I was like, well, you've got to go get this or get this. And I was like, I should just do this because I know what it is that I want. And I know the back end well. I know how to reverse engineer a story, but I should just go get the story that I want.
Yeah.
And that unlocking that sort of was huge for me because you can put guardrails on yourself in life for anything that you do, you kind of unintentionally will set boundaries, and realizing that I was like placing this boundary on myself, and then removing that boundary was really life-changing.
No, there was an exercise we used to do in my grad school program where our professor would make us write with constraints. Okay. So like not using periods or things like that. And then what it would do is, placing so many ridiculous constraints on our writing, what it would do is unlock something in the brain that you didn't even know existed in the story that you were trying to craft. Yeah. So I can definitely see how editing was a very valuable skill for chasing that story, and maybe especially with making a documentary, going into those layers. Yeah. It's so interesting with, scripted, you're inventing a character. And with this, you're essentially trying to keep that character, like your stories are very character driven, but then you're inventing the 3-act structure. And so I would love to know how the actual logistics of going through all that footage and knowing what that storyboarding process is like is to create that 3-act structure in the A and B story.
This is a great question, and no one ever asked this, and I wish that they did. Yeah, it's all because this is what you're talking about is everything. Yeah. And you have to get in a room, like we physically get in a room, with a wonderful creative partner, story producer, and our editor. And I just work with a very small but like robust team of brilliant minds. And we get in a room and there's a giant whiteboard and we do the note cards. I mean, it's exactly as you should, here's this scene, and we start to put them up on the whiteboard and we talk about it and we tear it down and we argue about it and we move cards around, and you have to, here's the A story, and then here's the B story, and here's where they come together and break apart. And it's something that if you don't do that step, if you just plow ahead, like I don't know how these films get made, because eventually you get to a point where you realize, like, I've not broken into Act 3. I blew the tension way too soon, and the viewer is like going, why am I still watching this film? Like, there's so many places that you have to kind of build in. It's storytelling at its core, and that's what humans do. We tell each other stories, and that's like, to tell a story well is it's a really hard thing to do. So that part's extremely important to me.
And when I was watching, some of your most recent films, it's like, it's similar to memoir. That 3rd-act structure is sometimes about people that are still living. So it's interesting. Hopefully. Where you can almost have to break some of the traditional craft rules, but also maintain them for the sake of tension and entertainment.
Yeah. I love to watch films that break the 3-act structure, if it makes sense, if it's done with intention and not just casually like thrown again. You can tell it's like, well, that you just put the footage in a blender. There's not, but if it breaks the 3-act structure in a way that serves the story, I'm like so into that because it's inventive. And sometimes you do have to break it. Right now it's an interesting time in documentaries because I'm noticing that, and we've had to do this in my films. People, because our attention spans are so like getting trained down, you have to like preview the film, which is almost like a trailer that lives at the very top of the film during your opening credit sequence. It's like, this is everything here's the story, and here's all the people, and here's the stakes, and here's the journey. And it's like, I long for the films that just start and trust the viewer that you sat down to watch this, or you're in the theater for a reason. Trust me as a filmmaker, I'm not going to give you all the information so that you're confident that you're going to stay in your seat or not whip out your phone and get on Instagram and have a 2-screen experience. So that stuff is messing with the 3-act structure.
That's interesting.
It is. And it also, you'll get notes back that are like remind the viewers of the plot, double down on the themes. And it's like, if I double down anymore, this is so remedial, it really is strip mining the whole curiosity out of the process. And that is messing with the 3-act structure. It's just it's like we're creating this new sort of templated way that at least like streaming documentaries get made. And I see it all the time now.
So funny
frustrating.
that you say that, because I had a hypothesis again about Adam Durrett's work, because I study his work insanely. I had a theory that August and everything after followed the heroine's journey, and I proved it right. And then I went back because what I've also noticed, and it, you know, like you said, you can bend the rules, but the heroine's journey sometimes doesn't fit perfectly with the 3-act structure. And I think I'm someone where I've been like, if I've been taught something, I'm trying to like fit it into the way that I've been taught. And then I talk to people like you and you're like, no, we kind of had to shift this around to be innovative and to make it work for the sake of tension and curiosity and maintaining like someone's attention span. And it's so relieving, because in my eyes, when we watch documentaries like about Lainey Wilson and Adam and Sheryl Crow, people who have like broken records, it's because they didn't follow particular structures. They've woven narratives of other artists that align with their image and story. And it's so refreshing is what I'm saying. And so how do you know to go with that like gut instinct of like what is the feeling, the actual visceral feeling where you're like, okay, we have to be different here, or we can't follow these show notes, you know, from a studio or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question, because, you know, like I'm learning every day. So I'm not, I mean, I've made a number of these. I know what I'm talking about on generally, just based on experience. But like, I'm wrong a lot. So I'm not opposed to the notes process. I'm not opposed to, you know, we like to do a lot of screenings and show our friends and talk it over. And, you know, a lot of scenes that I would have loved to put in, they get thrown out because it just upsets the balance or for whatever reason. I think you just have to constantly check whether or not the feedback is serving the story or not. And if it's serving the film, I'll take it. I'll take the notes all day long. But if it starts serving the algorithm more than the actual film, it's very apparent, and that changes the tone and the legitimacy of the entire thing. And to your point, I always think about that. I'm like, these people are rule breakers. We're following them because they were staunch rule breakers. And so it doesn't really make sense to bend the knee at every turn and try to make this a homogenized experience where, you know, like, don't aim down the middle, because they didn't aim down the middle. I'm not trying to service an entire population. Like, I'd rather have a niche audience. It's like, you know, hell yeah, I am obsessed with this film, rather than like a really wide audience. It was like, it's pretty good.
Yeah. You know? Well, it's also because the subjects that you're interviewing do have such a loyal fan base that as long as they're really, you know, thrilled with the film, like that's going to amplify the story more. And that's how you build community too. Yeah.
On that note, I always say like the fans will be there regardless, because of course they will. You know, you consume things about the people that you love. So I didn't really know who Lainey Wilson. I've heard of her name, but I did not know very much about her at all. Adam, of course, I knew Counting Crows because I graduated high school in 1994. You know, but I wasn't like a super fan, which I think you're like a deep fan. I am now that I know them. But it did give me a perspective that is just a little outside. So I felt like I could be a little more biased and try to make a story that is more universal, or like a more human-driven story that could invite people in that hate the Counting Crows. I mean, we had a lot of that. A lot of people, because they're for whatever reason, they're a divisive band.
I loved that part of the documentary.
It's like insane.
Well, because I don't think I knew that. I was born in 1996.
Okay.
So like I didn't know that. Like I only discovered the Counting Crows because I had a fling with a guy in Paris who was older than me. Like that is the only reason I became a Counting Crows fan.
Yeah, that's great. Let me walk you through it. The 90s. They were an extremely polarizing band because and we kind of make this point in the film, but I'll expound on it more here. that was a time, that was when you first kind of had the concept of like the sellout. So it was
Right.
like the beginnings of like alternative and indie rock, which by design is an alternative to the mainstream. So these guys were making music that was pretty much just their own music. They're like, I don't care where you file it in the record store bin. This is our sound. This is what we're doing. But if you get really, really popular at that point in time, you were labeled a sellout, I think. And I think that, I mean, that's what I remember vividly from that
Right.
time. And so, which is ironic because Nirvana probably sold more records than anybody, you know, in that sense. Did not get labeled the same sort of a thing. But yeah, it was, all of that stuff was just really like trying to unpack the different A stories and B stories of those, you know, like that's kind of a more nuanced thread of the film. But I thought it was worth examining because of who Adam is, you know,
For
because
sure.
he cares deeply about that stuff. Still to this day.
I know. And now this week after Stagecoach, they're calling them country, which yeah, okay, they kind of do have a vibe of that. And I
know.
it was just so funny to see
so
like
bizarre.
now,
I
how
know.
many years later, like they're still just
Yeah.
trying. And what's so funny is because when I have been studying writing and throughout grad school and everything, I was taught to say F you to genre. It's a construct.
Yeah, it is a construct. Yeah.
And that's what I do love about documentaries is because it opens up this world to the subjects of, again, how they just didn't care, how they're blending sounds, how they're blending stories. And in your job, it's very interesting because, like we said, it's not scripted. What does that look like as an interviewer? Because interviewing is a skill. And how do you hone that craft?
So when I was right out of college, I lived in Chicago. I was an editor for documentary film editor, mostly like PBS style films, Ken Burnsy type.
Yeah.
They were great. A lot of social issue based work. But I got into working for the Chicago History Museum, and there's probably the preeminent journalist sort of that like honed the art of the interview. His name is Studs Terkel. It's like Terry Gross, Studs Terkel. Those are the folks, you know, that you study for radio. He did radio interviews. And so the Chicago History Museum had all of his archives, and I got a part-time job just digitizing those audio reels. So they were 2-inch audio reels. We'd run them through a Studer. It was this beautiful machine. And then sometimes I had to bake the tapes because they were so old and crackly. You bake them in an oven, and then you sit there in real time with headphones on to check the audio quality of the digital transfer. So we were prepping everything for the Library of Congress at the time to hand over the collection. So I spent hours and hours, hundreds of hours listening to this man interview every great mind of our time. But I mean, he started in the 50s, but it was like Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie and Mahalia Jackson and just iconic people. And so from him, I just kind of started to understand there was power in a conversation. There's a way to do it where you shut people down. And then there's a way to do it where it's like active listening. You're inviting them in, and you're not, my thing is like, I can tell when an interviewer, and I'm guilty of this myself, when I have an agenda and I'm just trying to get this answer out of them. And that sucks. That's not good. I mean, that is manufactured. So if you can lighten up and let the conversation go where it wants to go, most often than not, you're going to have so many more realistic, authentic answers to build a story with.
Right.
So.
Because it's like you always have like the questions that you want to ask, but you know, if you ask them in the order
It goes sideways because people, and if you keep trying to, God, let's get back to this point, it's like they don't want to talk. They don't want to talk about that right now. They might work their way back to that place, but they're not ready yet. So it's like, it's like surfing, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. And also to that point, like with making these documentaries and interviews, they're usually about the subject's most intimate and vulnerable emotions. How do you kind of practice protection around someone's mental health? I like what Lainey said in Keepin Country Cool. Like as a singer, she actually is like, I hear a lot of stories, but some of that is not on me. And she didn't say it in a harsh way. She was saying it in like, I'm so glad my music resonates. And I'm so glad it's changed people's life. But there's two personas that she balances. And I think I'm sure maybe as your role, you might feel similarly, but at the same time, you're with them, like next to these subjects. And so I'm sure that's difficult.
Yeah. In terms of like making sure that they feel protected
or safe, or like that it's not completely triggering them.
Oh yeah. No. I've learned this because I've done it. I've messed up. I mean, I've gone in too hard, too fast. I haven't built trust with people. You got to build trust, like if you really want to get in and have authentic interaction and real answers, you just can't come in on day one and be like, tell me about this horrible thing that happened in your life.
Right.
I mean, some people can do it because they really want to talk about it. But if you're like, I always tell them, before the cameras start rolling, like, I'll take care of you in the edit, because I think that's really important. People don't realize, like, especially the AI, you can make anyone say anything now.
Yeah.
Like anything that you desire them to say, and it's just not true. It's not real. So I let them know that. And then throughout the process, I just kind of am pretty straight up in advance of like, hey, today if you're comfortable with it, I'd like to get to a place where we talk about this thing, and I'll take the cues from you if you're ready to go there, but we'll start to kind of build up. And honestly, like 9 times out of 10, they're like, okay, with a little bit of warning.
Right.
And so you're not just slamming it in their face, which is this really disgraceful way to treat people. Yeah. Then they're like willing, they're very like, okay, let me unpack this with you. And they'll take their time and tell you about what they want to talk about, whether it's mental health or trauma or whatever they've been through.
And I think even to that point, how is this something that you pursue to even get musicians to say yes to doing a documentary with you?
There's a whole wide world of development, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
Where you just write pitches all day. And I was refining a pitch minutes before I had to get in the car and drive here for another artist. I have 2 pitches right now in my inbox. No, 3 pitches right now. So it's like a volume game in terms of like, I've got an idea and then I check I'm just going to walk you through my process. So if I have an idea or I'm like, something has sparked my interest, and I'm like, that'd be an incredible film. I wonder if it's already been done. Then I just go look. I'm like, oh, okay, it hasn't been done, or it was done, but it was in 2012 or so, right. And it's still the rights have gone up or whatever. Then if I'm talking about music, it usually, in my experience, the best way in is to their managers, because their managers are managers for a reason. Yeah, they protect them, and so you have to find a way to get your pitch to the manager. And then if you can get on a call or a Zoom or something, then you can try not to be annoying, but you can show them how passionate you are about telling this story in this way. But they sit through these pitches all day. I mean, they get hit with a lot of this stuff. So it better stand out. Like, it better be a good idea. And then other times, there have been projects that I did not put together. I didn't package. I didn't come up with the treatment, but it kind of found its way to me out of sheer luck. And I'm like, that would be amazing. Of course. Like the Lainey project, I didn't know who she was. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. This country chick, and I started watching her videos and I was like, she's amazing. And then we saw her live. We went to she played in LA on the Country's Cool Again tour. And after that, I mean, I was already on board, but seeing her live performance, it was like, she's nonstop. I mean, have you seen her live before?
I've never seen her live, follow her religiously on Instagram because I need her entire wardrobe.
I know. She's a doll too.
It's
She's like
unreal.
such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great style, great energy. I was like tired keeping up with this woman, keeping up with Lainey is like, should be the title. Cause there was points when we were filming where I was like, we have to go to the bathroom. Like we haven't stopped, like literally, like we have to drink water and go to the bath, like basic human stuff. Cause this lady is just like, wakes up, goes to record a song, goes to, it's like boom, 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 boom. She never stops. It's incredible.
Well, and I loved, these films didn't come out too far apart from each other.
Yeah.
Right. You can find the Counting Crows documentary on HBO and you can find Lainey's documentary on Netflix. What for you was, both of these films touch upon the artist and then the celebrity.
Yep.
The artist is the authentic storytelling. They're going to do this regardless if they're famous or not. And then the celebrity persona is the business. What was those stark differences that you found in the interview process that were just striking to you?
Well, just on the subject of art and commerce, I guess, they have to be the celebrity. Yeah. And especially, I felt like Lainey really laid it out for us. Like, hey, you don't understand. You make 0.0001% of a penny for a song stream and you have to split that with other songwriters. There's no way to really make a living unless you put yourself out there and you create almost like a cult of personality around so that you can make art. And that is the sad reality that we are in because our society does not value artists in this way, and especially musicians. It's pathetic. Yeah. And so they have to do this. For someone like Lainey, her personality type, it is easier for her. She works her ass off. But it's easier for her to do that. With Adam, I think it really bothered. He didn't want to have to do that. He's a poet. The guy is like a literate, a very literate, like a academic, and he's really an emotional, like introvert. So getting out there and trying to create a cult of personality around the celebrityism is unnatural for a guy like that. And so I just think like we've really lost the plot, in terms of humanity and the way that we worship the concept of celebrity. It messes with people's heads, For sure. And that's the part of all, there is that in all of my films. I think you try to like go, okay, but this is kind of weird, don't you think, that they have to do this and that we are so obsessed with them in this way and that they have to kind of, like Adam should be able to drive down the road without getting screamed at. That's just not right. At one point we used to make this joke that it was like the log line of the Counting Crows film was like the golden rule. Like do unto others. I'm not a religious person, but I'm like, there is merit in these rules that we set up for each other just to be nicer humans. So,
and that's actually something we're exploring on season 3 of the show right now with Sparkle is this parasocial relationship. Because what I have found, and I think especially like as me as a young girl, I grew up being obsessed with Britney Spears and Hilary Duff, right? Okay. And as a young person, it's not inherently bad because you're looking up to women that you want to be like. These are powerful forces of nature that are able to express themselves and be in their favorite style and like all of that. Yeah. But what I have found in myself is when I really identify with an artist, it's usually because I am trying to find my way in studying their art. Yeah. And most people, and even like with some of these people that I've brought on the show that'll be coming out, is identifying that story of people that aren't figuring out, like One Direction fans, like with Harry Styles and whatnot, they're not figuring it out, that their mania, right, their fandom is partly because they haven't found how to channel themselves and their power. And I think that's what I hope most for this mission is for people to find how they channel it, like you. Like you are fans of the people that you've interviewed now, but you're not going to let it stop you from finding that spark for you and like what you do to contribute into amplifying these really important voices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's all really important work, honestly, because we're not just passive individuals. We have something to contribute, all of us do. And to your point, something creative to contribute, whether you think of yourself as a creative person or not, it's in there. You just have to, get inspired to do it. I've made films about the people that there's something in each of those stories. We did I co-directed with Brian Morrow a 2-part film about Melissa Etheridge, and she went back to this women's prison in Kansas. She'd lost her son to opioid addiction. She wanted to understand the cycle of addiction, and she wanted to bring music to the women's prison in the town she grew up in. And so we didn't know when we started it. We were just like, does not sound like a biopic. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. And Melissa was really, really adamant about, I want to spend time with, they don't call them inmates anymore, thank God. They call them residents. So she's like, I want to spend time with the residents and I want to know them. And so they started writing her letters. And this is the part where you're going, okay, the film is taking on a life of its own. We did not anticipate that they would start corresponding and have this sort of pen pal relationship. And then she would use their letters to, or not use, I guess she was inspired by their letters to write a song that she wanted to play for them. And so all of this is just sort of happening. I felt like when I stood, it was such a rewarding experience. It was like one of the most real things I've ever experienced, to go into a prison and sit across the table from these women that were so vulnerable and just so underrepresented in society. Like they are thrown out.
Yep.
Like we don't, as a society, we don't care. And that's tragic, because the worst thing that they've ever done does not define them. And so sitting with them and giving them voice was one of the most fulfilling things of my life. But when I look at like the whole, and kind of just like, if I have to come up with a mission statement as to why I do what I want to do, it's to better understand each other. I just want to understand. And I'm so drawn to stories of people that have overcome adversity, or something has happened to them, or they've done something extraordinary, or suffered through some traumatic thing. And how did they use that to propel them forward? Those stories are the most fascinating. And I think they're ultimately so inspiring for us as a collective, to be better people.
Yeah. And I think what's so interesting about even using the avenue of musicians, that what I love in all of your work, you've been able to bring this grounding to how they reconnected with that, right? Like, I think with Stars, we know that they may have been through something or a long road to get there.
Yeah.
It took 14 years for Lainey to get her #1 hit. And plenty of people have quit before that marker. What have you done as an artist, but also similarities to people that you've interviewed, that is that grounding? I literally went to the Viper Room a couple weeks ago to find grounding again, after I was just so burnt out of, I don't even know, my day job that I was suffering through or whatever. And I knew that Adam went and did the same thing. And I came, what's ironic? I came across an amazing artist. Their name was Raven. I was like, that's weird.
Amazing.
That, like, weird in the best way possible. Like that, like,
right.
obviously crows and ravens are different, but I'm curious as to, you're kind of always on this ride of displaying and elevating other people. What do you do?
To find grounding, I just want to be with my kids.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's where, because I'm a mom, and I find the most value in that role. Yeah. Like, so, and they don't care, like, they care about what I do for a living. They care. I think they're always fascinated by it, but they don't have the same concerns, and so it's really, really grounding and really refreshing to come home to them and to like crack up at the stuff that they say. And they mess with me, and I love it, because kids are the best. They're the best. So that's my that is definitely the place that I fly to. And I know I start to feel it if I've been like filming for too long on the road or been apart from them. My identity feels real destabilized because that's who I'm at my core. I'm a mom to them, to those girls. So if I'm starting to get emotional out of nowhere.
No, I love that.
It's just, I take it really seriously. So
yeah, I mean, it's in a way, it's healing your inner child too, and so much of that connection and that relationship fuels what you do. And to see that, I take care of a young 2-year-old every now and then, and I mean, I won't lie, I literally went through a year of not being employed and building Sparkle, and I will say, like, she has been one of the biggest inspirations. Like, I showed up, I was going to a Beyonce concert one day after taking care of her, and I put on like my sparkly dress and everything. All of a sudden she started wearing pink sparkly dresses and like obsessed with pink and sparkles. And it's like you realize how much you are a role model to kids, even if you're just part of their village, right? And it's kind of frightening.
Well, it is frightening. It's on the one hand, it's really beautiful. You are a role model, whether you like it or not. Kids are absorbing everything. They're clocking everything. They're clocking every conversation, everything. And then on a global scale, that's what's so terrifying about like people in power, because they are currently modeling this behavior that is like, I just always am like, think about the kids, man.
Yeah.
They're learning that this is normal to act like this or say those things or conduct yourself in this way on a professional level. They're learning, you're modeling that is professional. And we all know that this is not a professional way to conduct yourself, Yeah. So yeah, I could go, I don't want to go on a tangent.
Well, how did, no, really, I love this tangent because I'm not a mom. I'm very curious to know, how did your creative process change when you became a mom?
Yeah. So that was that year that I became a mom, and was also the year that I became a director. Wow. So I was editing up until that point. And then I read the book about Hal Ashby, and I loved his films. And I was like, I got to make a film. I got to do it. This is so important to me. And we had no money, nothing. And I was pregnant with my first child, and was just like, I guess I'll go to the estate and try to get a permission, or, and just kind of like waddled in there. Like, it was just so funny because it was like this little office out in the valley, and I hadn't done anything. Like, they were like, yeah, I mean, well, show us what you've done. And I was like, so I've edited a lot of films, which is like, I don't know why the guy was like, he should have been like, okay, we'll talk to you never. But I think I just sold him on my, I was so passionate about it. I felt a real urgency to, when you have a child or, decide to grow a family in whatever way that you do, it's not, your time is limited and your identity starts to shift. And so I think I was like, I really have to do this now. If I want to do it, I need to do it right now, because from this moment, as soon as this baby comes into this consciousness, is a whole new deal. It's a whole new playing field. So if anything, it just whipped everything into really sharp focus for me at that time.
And did the urgency feel stressful, or did it feel liberating?
Both. Mm-hmm. Stressful and liberating. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Liberating because I knew, and also once I made that film, I was like, well, great. There's no turning back now. Like, there's nothing else I want to be doing. I'm never not going to do this. So that's like a blessing and a burden at the same time, because you're like, what if I go broke? Yeah. Oh, well, I don't have another marketable skill. This is the one I want to do, So you're like, I'm digging in, but you just have to keep, working at it. And the stressful part is, the film industry is a wild ride. Yeah. So sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. I don't know where we are right now. I honestly
don't know where we are.
Don't know what's happening. There's all kinds. It's always like, there's the streaming biz, which is doing its own thing. There's the unions and just all the work that's like leaving California. But then there's the influx of like content creators that are like going, you know what, I'm just going to make it myself, which I find very liberating and cool. And this sort of punk rock democratized situation that we're in, where it's like, I don't really need the gatekeepers, and you don't. I mean, that's wild. Like you know, the stats of YouTube alone versus like all the other streamers combined is just like, well, look at the data, look at the numbers.
I mean, I don't know where we are in the history wheel of things repeating itself anymore because I can't keep track, but I do think we're due for a punk rock era. Like
we're so due.
I'm ready to embody it.
So due. Yeah.
Last question, but when do you feel the most lit up and that spark when you're making these films? Is it towards the end of post-production where you're about to show it to your friends, or where do you like feel the most light?
That's hard. I don't think one is more important than the other, but that it's absolutely. I was just in production on a new film 2 weeks ago. It's a bit of a blur because they were 12-hour days, like in succession. And it's a beautiful film. I've never had the sort of the means to accomplish a lot of the sort of creative ideas that I've had in the past. Like, what if we, had this crazy tracking shot and then we went the length of the stage and we included the cast, but also the crew and all these kind of interesting ideas, and we pulled it off. So when you get to the end when the dolly gets to the end of that track, and you're like going, oh my God, we got it. Like, that's wild. That's such a exciting. I just wanted to show everyone. I wanted to like send my parents like, check this shot out. It's just such a geek thing to do. Like, I think so many of the people in my life are like, that's great, honey. That's great. And then, the other time that it's really thrilling is right before you lock the cut. Mm-hmm. I think there's that last screening that you have with your team internally, and we're all like, we did it. Yeah. That is more powerful than going to walk on a red carpet, which is really cool and fun, but that's more for like, like that's about Lainey. Like I'm like, she's the red carpet star, Yeah. We're like, we've done our jobs if we get to the carpet, but it's that last moment that you have before you turn I think it's because once you hand the film over, if you're lucky enough to hand it over to a distributor, it's not yours anymore. Yeah. Literally it's not yours anymore. They own it. But metaphorically, it's like the kid goes off to college, moved out of the house. You can't make decisions about the cut anymore. And so there's like, it's like a little melancholy, but it's really an emotional, beautiful time that you have with your team to just be like, whoa, we did it. We did it.
Well, what I love about the contrast of the two examples you gave is like the one of like the shot that you got where no one understands. It's like, I completely understand that feeling of knowing something is going to be great before you get to that like final cut. Yeah. But when you get to that end point and everyone sees it, it's like, but I knew. Yeah, exactly. And now you're catching on. And that's a movement, right? It is. So that duality that feels so separated, because again, you said if you're lucky enough to get to that, it's just like, it's that staying in the game kind of thing, so that someone sees that moment of where you knew, because it's so rewarding to validate your intuition, especially as a woman.
Well, no, it's 1,000%. It is what it is, because you have to. I mean, let's be real. Women have to work way harder, constantly. In this business as well, I feel like I'm always trying, and I have a really supportive team, mostly of men, but like you're constantly having to prove that you know what you're talking about, and that drives me insane, because I'm like, well, just look at my past. I don't want to be well, okay, but I kind of know what I'm doing about this one, little lane of storytelling. And I've learned it through trial and error, because I screwed up along the way, or I knew that like the shot's going to work, and turns out it works, and it keeps happening. So like when those moments happen, you they're like little nuggets, and you just fold them up and put them in your backpack, and you're like, well, I've got a backpack full of positive experiences where it worked out, you know, based on experience and drive and vision. So
yeah,
it counts for something.
No, and I think that's, you know, intuition is so important and part of this process. And that's what this is about, is tapping into those curiosities, tapping into your passion. And that's why you joined us on Sparkle on today.
Oh my gosh,
so
this is such a fun conversation.
I'm glad. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you.
I will absolutely link your films below, and everybody should go watch them.
Great. Thank you so much, Davey.
Sparkle on.
And sparkle